Do you want to become more proactive? Two things. Number one, fall in love with the numbers.
People that you've seen that have been the best execs, what do you think the main things are that all these people share?
I've been thinking about that a lot. The acronym, in my opinion, is called the 3RPE. Let me explain what that means. My philosophy is simple. I keep giving to people until they break. All right, welcome back to Ask the CEO. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Patrick Cadei, and myself and the other co-founder, Jeremy Van Akerlaken, we run a sales agency based pretty much everywhere in Australia. And what we do for a living, we teach people everything sales and leadership related. And we have an overall team of 160 people working at Community Collective. Our guest today is Mr. Max Gorman-Batt over there. You can say hello, Max.
G'day.
And again, the goal of the Ask the CEO series is simple, is an opportunity for everybody working at Community Collective to network either with myself or with the other co-founder, Jeremy. But without further ado, let's get started and let's see what are the questions that Max is going to put forward today. So Max, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Are you excited to be here?
Very. It's gonna be awesome.
Is this the first podcast that you ever done, or do you already have experience when it comes to podcast?
No, this is my first podcast ever.
First one. Okay, congratulations first of all, right?
Thank
the first
you.
one is obviously very exciting. And yeah, I'm excited to have a conversation with you today. Before we get started, I would like to do a little introduction.
Yep.
Right? So for those of you that don't know Max at the moment runs a team of how many people?
12 people right now.
12 people, right? So it's got a combination of people doing sales and also sales trainers, right? That you have personally coached yourself. And at the moment, that team is turning over an average of $1.5 million a year, which is pretty exciting. Would you agree?
Very exciting, yes.
That's right. So that's where Max is at today. Awesome, Max. I'll leave it over to you if you want to give a quick introduction, how long you've been with us, and then you can get started with your questions.
Yeah, perfect. So obviously Max Gorman-Batt, I'm 25 years old now. I've been with Community Collective for coming up on 2.5 years at the end of this year. So I've been
great.
Been here a little while now, which is good.
It's been a good time, I hope.
Yes, it's been the best time of my life coming here and taking this opportunity, which has been awesome. So with the situation I'm in right now, running a team of 12 people, I'm not sure yet because we're still waiting on approval and of a few things, but I'm pretty sure I've just hit my next promotion to executive manager, which
That's great.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
When are you going to know the outcome, whether it's certain or not?
Hopefully next week.
Okay.
Hopefully next week, but you never know. You guys like to keep it a secret. So.
We do. We love it. We love it. We like to surprise people.
Exactly. So first kind of thing I want to talk about with yourself, obviously just due to the situation I'm in. Mm-hmm. I want you to paint a bit of a picture for me for, I guess, your journey to exec when you were in a similar position to me. So how big was your team? What you guys were selling at the time? You know, how many sales you guys were doing?
Yeah,
I want a bit of insight to how it looked for you.
Okay. Well, before I answer to the question, let me clarify one thing for the audience.
Yep.
So when Max says executive manager, that's a promotion that we have internally at Community Collective. And what that means is that you have organically trained and developed and retained successfully a team of 10 people plus, right? So that's what executive manager is a team that turns over an average as a bare minimum $1.3 to $1.5 million in revenue and above, right? So when we refer to executive manager, at least you guys know what it is that we are talking about. Cool? But going back to your question. So for me personally, the question was the challenge that I had along the way, or...
Yeah, so obviously the main challenges you faced getting there, how big your team was at the time, what you were selling at the time as well, what it looked like for you getting there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess the main challenge for me, right, was very simple. For me, sales was a quite simple job. I'm not gonna lie. I think I mentioned this in the previous podcast, but it was quite natural. It was quite natural because, again, believe it or not, I used to be a rapper when I was younger. So I did a lot of freestyle battles on stage and competition. So I was already used to that part, and I already knew how to think on my feet. So when I started working in sales, I view sales just as another freestyle battle, as another freestyle competition where the opponent was giving me objections, and my job was just to overturn these objections successfully to get to a certain outcome. So when it comes to sales, it was quite simple because, again, nobody had to teach me how to work hard. Nobody had to teach me how to dream big. Nobody had to teach me how to keep an attitude. Nobody had to teach me how to be a student. I had those traits, right? I was raised very well by my father. very privileged for that aspect, but obviously, I think I've said it before, my father is a big entrepreneur in Switzerland, so he gave me all the lessons along the way. So sales was easy, okay? The difficult part was teaching other people how to sell. And I mentioned this before, that was my biggest challenge by far, simply because I couldn't fully understand people, especially when people were not like me. Right? Because my assumption was that everybody had to be motivated. Everybody had to be driven. That everybody had to pick up sales as fast as I did. And when people did it, I was generally confused. Right? So it took me a while. And I'm not going to lie, Max, during my first year in sales, and especially when I transitioned into a leadership role, I did lose a lot of people, right? A lot of people quit along the way during my first 12 months simply because I was trying to turn them into me. And I was expecting them to be like me. So the big breakthrough for myself at the time is when I realized back then that every person is different, or at least there are differences between people. And once again, the big change happened once I understood DISC profiling, okay? Yeah. There are different personalities, and depending on the personality that somebody possesses, you got to treat that person accordingly. So once I understood that part, everything changed, okay? Another big book that helped me at the time was How to Win Friends and Influence People in a positive way. So, reading that book made a big difference for me once I started realizing that not everybody had to be like me. And, people are different. And my job as a leader is to get the best out of them based on who they are. Everything started skyrocketing. Okay, so that was my biggest lesson. As far as the size of my team, Max, when I first got promoted, I had 15 people in my team. And the product that I was selling at the time, I was selling financial services. That's what I was doing.
Awesome. So I guess just to follow up on that, based on everything you just said, in your experience in like the whole time you've been in this industry, what do you think the main traits are of the people that you've seen that have been the best execs, and then obviously gotten promoted further from there? What do you think the main things are that all these people share?
Yeah, that's a great question, Max, right? And I've been thinking about that a lot, to be honest with you, and I'm actually about to deliver a conference about this topic in a foreign country in Europe. So great question, and more importantly, I'm ready for the answer, right? But I'm going to give you an acronym, and the acronym, in my opinion, is called the 3RPE, okay? So we go R, 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 and then PE. Let me explain what that means. The first trait, which is by far the most important one, is resourcefulness. Okay, because in my opinion, unfortunately, you can educate people on having resourcefulness, but I'm a strong believer that you cannot fully teach it. Okay, so that's something that you need to identify. Now, it's easy to say, but how do you actually measure if somebody is resourceful? Okay, because you got to test people. Well, the best test to actually establish whether somebody is resourceful or not is to watch how they behave when things are not going too well. Okay, because in my opinion, Max, it's very easy to perform and it's very easy to be good when everybody around you is also good. But what does that mean? If you can only be good when everybody is good, what that means is that you are addicted to resources and you rely on the external environment in order for you to be the best version of yourself. I'm not interested in that. Simply because, you heard me saying this many times, but leaders are made in time of war. So I like to observe people and I like to observe their behavior when the situation is not working in our favor.
Okay.
And why is that, Max? Because, when you promote people to senior levels, okay, you trust those people, okay, and they're going to be a big part for the future. And I'm really interested to know, well, everything is going well today, but tomorrow we're going to face challenges. And when we're going to face challenges, can I trust this person to react accordingly or not? Right? So that's a big test for resourcefulness. And the second one, I really like to observe as how people behave when they accumulate more resources.
Okay.
Let me explain this concept, right? Because when you start working in sales, remember your first week?
I do.
Did you know everything about sales?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Did you know everything about overturning?
No.
Okay. You didn't know much, did you?
Not much at all.
You didn't have the network that you have today, did you?
No, not even
Okay,
close.
so is it fair to say that at the beginning of your sales career, your resources were very limited?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you need to do in order to overcompensate that? Well, you need to amplify as much as possible your resourcefulness, which is your determination, which is your inner motivation, which is your willpower, and that's how you get results when you're not as good, okay, which is what you did at the start. But what I like to observe is, what do people do as resources go up? Because here's what most people do. As they accumulate more resources, right? So they make more money, they have more knowledge, they have a bigger network, a better office, whatever it might be. As they accumulate more resources, they decrease the level of resourcefulness.
Yeah.
Their willpower goes down. The inner motivation goes down simply because they're getting complacent. So I like to observe that as well. When somebody gets access to a better pay structure, do they do more or do they do less? Because the people that I truly respect are the following. They get access to better money. They get access to more commissions. They get access to team bonuses. And what they do as a consequence of that, they work 4 times harder because they're like, well, I've been waiting for this moment, right? I've been waiting for these resources to come my way, and now I'm fully going to exploit them, okay?
100%.
And again, you can educate people on this, but I fully believe that you cannot fully teach this. And in my opinion, this is the most important one by far, because when somebody has resourcefulness, things can always happen. When somebody relies on resources being given, well, man, we might face a financial crisis. We might face a problem with the clients. We might face this. We might face that. And if that's the person that you have in charge, you already know where things are going to go. But before we go into the other principles, I'm interested to hear your opinion. What do you think about resourcefulness? And based on what you've been observing up until now, right? When you look at all the top people at Community Collective, do you agree that what distinguishes those people from everybody else is a very, very high level of resourcefulness? What's your opinion?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's very common in this business, as you said, in the beginning for people to be very resourceful because obviously of the limit of resources and the excitement of the new job and wanting to learn so much.
Yeah.
In the beginning, people do tend to be very resourceful, but over time, the vast majority of people, they lose that. They do lose that resourcefulness. But they're the top guys. They are the top guys because they kept it and they are still utilizing their resourcefulness to the best of their ability, and obviously with so many more resources on hand at that level, it's why they are where they are. But
absolutely,
one question I do have: why do you think that like aspect of resourcefulness can't actually be taught?
Well, because it's not something that you can just teach on theory, right? You can teach somebody the knowledge, you can give somebody the concept, but ultimately they can only do it if they decide to do it, right? The ball is fully in their court. It's a decision that they need to make. And what I found, some people, they just don't think as big, right? It all depends on that. It depends what does somebody want from life. Because a lot of people, as they accumulate more resources, they're like, well, that's all I wanted from life. Okay. I'm happy with this right now. Whereas for the real players, at least in business, they always want more. They're grateful for what they have, but they want to make it bigger simply because they also want to provide to the people around them.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, if you're a leader and you're lacking resourcefulness, what happens as a consequence of that? You become a selfish leader.
Yeah.
You don't even know that. You don't even realize that. But the reality is right now you're selfish because you have achieved your goal. You have accumulated the resources that you wanted, and now the target has been hit. But the reality is this: you lead other people. And if you don't have that resourcefulness that has been kept and maintained, here's what's going to happen next. You don't provide to anybody else but you. Because now you're happy and you're like, man, I've been working for this milestone for so long. I got the resources that I always wanted. Now I'm happy. But you only become a real leader when your goal becomes the following. I now want to give to everybody else in my team the same resources that I have.
Yeah.
And in order to provide resources to everybody in your team, at least as an equal level as yours, you can only do that by doing one thing. You need to be extremely resourceful. Otherwise, you're never going to get there.
Yeah, 100%.
So if somebody doesn't have that, they're not a bad person. I'm not saying I hate the people that don't have resourcefulness. What I'm saying is they may not be suited to become a leader of a large organization simply because they're just putting themselves first and they're not thinking about other people, right? And I don't think that you can fully teach that.
Yeah, I understand.
That's the reality, because being resourceful takes a lot of hard work, man. It's a never-ending journey. And a lot of people have this false belief that entrepreneurship is a journey with a final destination, but in my opinion, isn't. You just keep extending the destination again and again and again and again and again. Yeah. And that's what resourcefulness is. And people that have resourcefulness, Max, they truly love the game.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you get what I mean? There are some people that like the game. And then there are the people that love the game. And if somebody loves the game, they want to play the game forever.
Yeah, 100%.
That's my answer. Not everybody wants to play forever.
So when you said you think some people, I guess, don't think big enough and they can't like unlock that level of resourcefulness, with those kind of people, do you think that's just something that you're born with, something that you have to go through something to, I guess, think that big, or what's your view on that?
Potentially. I'm not 100% certain about that. I know that obviously your external environment does have an influence on that. But again, if you just rely on the external environment to become more ambitious, you're addicted to resources.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with this, right? So all I can do to get people to think bigger is only one thing. I need to think bigger myself. I need to be better myself. I need to try to do more myself. I need to inspire myself more. As a consequence, I'm going to inspire other people more. But some people are just not meant to do it. This is the reality. Some people don't want to do it because it depends what you prioritize. Like thinking bigger is not necessarily better.
Yeah.
It depends what you prioritize. Because if you think bigger, that comes with a lot of effort and that comes with a lot of sacrifices. It depends what you value more, Max, right? We have wealth, we have health, we have love, we have freedom, and everybody puts those four things in different order. It depends what your priority actually is.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if somebody has the goal, the number one goal is family and freedom, for instance, and you push them too much towards the resourcefulness side, and you push them too much towards, becoming a multimillionaire and building a big empire and so on and so forth, you might just burn them out simply because what they value the most is not that.
Yeah.
They want to get to a certain level, they're happy with that level, and that's where they want to stay. So again, man, I don't necessarily know where it comes from because you could argue that it could come from the way you were raised, the parents, or whatever you want to say. But the reality is many times you see siblings that have grown up together in the same family with the same parents, but then the siblings are exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Selfish Gene. Okay, so I'm actually certain. And I know that people probably don't like this answer that I'm about to say, but perhaps a lot has to do with the genes that you have in your body.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because I got 4 siblings and we are not similar. I'm not saying they're better. I'm not saying they're worse, but we're not similar.
Yeah, they're very, very the same with my siblings as well. I've got an older sister and a younger brother. We're very similar in certain ways, but then we're very different in our approach to a lot of ways as well. And
spot on.
Literally all having the exact same upbringing. It makes so much sense.
Spot on. But I also think that you need to be self-aware, Max, right? What does make you happy? Because again, some people, the life that I'm living, Max, Tuesday was a public holiday, yeah?
Yeah.
I swear, I was here until 10 p.m. I came here at 8 a.m. in the morning. I left the office at 10 p.m. at night because I had to do things. I'm going to be here Saturday. I'm going to be here Sunday. I have to because next week we have a conference. Then I'm going to Poland. I got another. So I had to work. The difference, Max, is this. First of all, I got a partner that understands this, okay? And that's very important.
Yep.
But second, Max, I love the game so much that I cannot even explain how much I love the game. If I go on holidays, I don't switch off.
Yeah.
The reason why I like going on holidays is because nobody is bothering me, so I can be at the beach and read business books. Okay? But that's me. So some people can point the finger and be like, man, you're too much. And I'm like, no, I am who I am. You are somebody different. That's cool. So that's what I mean, right? You got to establish that. So if you put people in charge of big departments of your organization that need to constantly grow more and more and more, you better make sure that that's their ambition. They need to be resourceful. They need to want it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You're going to burn them out and they're going to leave.
Yeah.
Not better or worse. You need to know who you are. You need to know what your priorities are. And you generally need to love the game.
100%.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Okay.
What do you think are some of the main resources that have helped you the most? Like, it could be books you've read or people you spoke to consistently. What do you think are the main ones that have helped you?
Main resources that have helped me. Number one, my father.
Yep.
Okay. So again, I love the relationship with my father. I generally do. Why? Because the person that I trust the most, okay? Because I know that my father is always going to be genuine with me. And since he has a lot of proven success and a big track record, I can ask him a lot of questions. And there are many times that I walked into a conversation with my father thinking that what I was doing was right, and it just gave me a different point of view. So I love that relationship because I know that it doesn't have a best of interest in sabotaging me.
Yeah.
He's my dad.
Cool.
So he's just going to tell me what's better for me, and that's why I love that relationship. And look, not something that everybody has, right? So I'm very privileged to have this type of relationship and to have the father that I have. And again, I'm privileged to have the father that I have because he's a business guy. I don't know if my other siblings are going to say the same thing, right? Again, because I love the business game. He loves the business game too. If I didn't love the business game, maybe I wouldn't say the same thing, right? So it works out for me. It worked out for me, sorry. The second thing, yes, reading books. I love reading books. I'm not going to lie. I'm not one of those that reads a book a week. I actually don't enjoy that because when I read a book, I like to execute the book. And before I pick up a book, I do a lot of research about the book because I also don't want to waste my time. So I want to read the right books because it's, this is also why I've always been internally conflicted with posting content online. Because I just started, right? As you know, I started like 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
Or, right, Emilia, you can't see she's over there. 3-4 months ago, right? The reason why I waited so long is because I was like, well, I don't want to teach things that have not been proven for an extended period of time because maybe I'm teaching something that is only working right now, but it's not going to work in 3 months from now. And then indirectly, I'm fucking people over because they're going to follow that advice.
Yeah.
So even with books, I'm the same. I'm like, before reading somebody's book, I'm like, does this person have proven success? And I do a lot of research about the book. And then I pick a book, I read the book, and I execute the book. Like when I'm reading a book, I treat the book as if I'm about to go for an exam at university and they're going to ask me a lot of questions about the book and I need to know everything about that book.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, reading has served me well, but I'm very relevant and specific with what I read. And when I read a book, you know this. Because whenever I read a book, what do?
You talk about it.
I talk about it often.
Very often.
Like
everyone.
here's what I've experienced in this office. Whenever I read a book, 2 weeks after, 40 other people are reading the same book.
Yeah. Must be relevant then.
No, but also it's because I teach it. I talk about it, right? So to internalize a book, you need to first of all understand it and internalize the knowledge. Second of all, you need to live by it. And third, you got to teach it. So that's what I do, which is why it takes me a little bit longer to read a book. But yeah, 100%. Books have helped me extensively to get where I am today. And as far as resources, man, yes, obviously my business partner, having my partner as well, right? That's helped me massively because my personal life before having my partner was a mess.
Yeah.
But these would be the main resources. My partner, my business partner, books, my father. But as far as the rest, man, again, it's all about resourcefulness. I got where I am today because I was resourceful. Even with the resources that I was given, if I didn't have resourcefulness, I wouldn't be here speaking to you right now.
Yeah, of course.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, that's amazing. What's the, so you said there was an acronym.
Yeah, we got a little bit lost here. We only talked about the number one, which was, again, resourcefulness is the main trait that you want to see in leaders, okay, in my opinion. The second one is reliability. Okay, so people that are managing big responsibilities, they need to be reliable. Let me explain what reliable actually means. For me, if I'm trusting somebody to have that level of authority within my organization, they need to be reliable. And what does that mean? I observe how they behave when I'm not in the building. How do you do that? Well, you go one or two ways. You can put cameras, which I don't like. As you know, we don't have cameras here. As far as I'm aware, at least maybe they put cameras in my office. I should probably check, right? You can observe it that way. Or you could just have a group of people that reports back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And they tell you, hey, Patrick, when you were away, this is what this person was doing. So I want them to be good regardless, not only to be good when I'm around. Otherwise, again, it goes back to resourcefulness. If they're only good when I'm in the building, means that they rely on me to be there to be good, which once again, they rely on resources. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's one thing. The second thing about reliability for me, is when I see people that start doing the right thing without being told. That to me is a reliable person, because if you constantly need to give reminders, okay, that's not a reliable person. A reliable person is somebody that does the job regardless, no matter what, without being told.
Yeah.
Because if you gotta keep telling things, and if you need to keep reminding something, you're dealing with babies. Yes, you're not dealing with reliable entrepreneurs. 100%. And then how do you measure reliability? Well, you need to be able to trust the person. I'm not going to lie. When it comes to trust, I do test people a lot.
Yep.
I don't take trust as a given, okay? I'm not like, well, you're trustworthy. I can see you're trustworthy, so I'm going to trust you. No, I'm going to test you to make sure that I can actually trust you.
100%. How do you know?
You want to know my favorite test?
Sure, go for it.
I've done it with all these guys. I pay people more by mistake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I pay them more, and I see what they do after getting paid more than they should have. If they don't tell me, they're dead to me. No, I'm joking. They're not dead to me, but if they don't tell me, I'm like, that's interesting. Because if you were reliable, you would have told me, hey, Patrick, you pay me more money by mistake. I should have got paid less. And then if I pay them more, they say nothing. I pay them more one more time. And then I pay them more again. And then again. Testing. And if they say nothing, then I know who I'm dealing with.
Okay.
I don't know if you should put this on the podcast, though. Now I just gave away my internal IP. Let me think about this one. Okay. But what was your next question?
So obviously with reliability in terms of trusting people to, I guess, run the show when you're not there, how do you know when you fully can with someone? Is it just them displaying all the stuff that you just said, or? Yeah,
you don't. You actually don't. The only way to know it, once again, is to test people.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's another mistake that people make. If we talk about entrepreneurship, my favorite definition of entrepreneurship is the following: jumping off the cliff and building the plane on the way down.
Yeah.
I love that. So how do you know when somebody is ready? You don't. Because a lot of people, they are taking too much control, okay? And you can't judge someone's character as long as you're always there. Because if you're constantly running everything and you're constantly doing everything, even though they are good and behaving well, that's not a real reflection of character. The real reflection of character is, what are they gonna do when you're not there and when you give them more responsibilities?
Yeah.
So my philosophy is simple. I keep giving to people until they break.
Okay.
So if I give a responsibility, I see how they handle it. If they do it right, I give another one. They handle it, then another one, then another one, then another one, then another one. Then when I see that they're starting to break, what do? I pull back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe I need to stop right now. I sit down with the person, I reevaluate the situation, and then I move accordingly.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Has there been many situations where you've relied on people for something and it hasn't worked out for, whatever reason? And how do you deal with those situations?
Plenty of situations. How do you deal with those situations, man? Well, you can only try. And then if they're not pulling it off, you got to step back. You educate. First you educate. Yep. And then if after educating, they're still not doing it, you only have an answer, which is you got to step back in again. So you go back in, you do the job again yourself, but you do it with the person. Yeah. You educate in a practical way while you're doing it. And then you let them go a little bit, but not as much.
Yeah, okay.
Just glimpses here and there where you give small responsibilities, you see how they handle those, and then gradually you give more and more and more and more and more, and then you let them go again. You try to do this 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and if you keep trying and it doesn't happen again and again and again and again and again, well, it gets to a point maybe after a certain period of time where it's just not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe it was the wrong person all along. But again, if that's the case, it's probably because the person is not resourceful enough.
Yeah.
Because if you got to keep stepping back in for things to work, that means that they're simply relying on you. Yeah. Does that make the person a bad person? No. You might have to redisposition the person into a different role. It is what it is.
Okay. So it's just a constant period of seeing if they're comfortable in that situation. And
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to start giving. Give a little at the beginning, then a little bit more, then a little bit more, but see how they react. If you're giving responsibilities and they're overwhelmed, you don't give more.
Yeah.
You pull them on the side, you have a conversation with them, you evaluate the situation, you set a plan. If needed, you step back in a little bit more or partially to help them handling the responsibility. And then gradually you give more and more and more and more and more. What's the maximum that you can give? You don't know. You cannot predict it. The only way to know is to give it. And once you give it, you see when people start breaking. And when they start breaking, that's a maximum. How do you know when they're breaking? You need to be observant and actually know the person and have a meaningful relationship with the person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't know if they're breaking, because what they're going to tell you is this: no, everything is fine, man, I'm great. But if you know the person well enough, you know that not everything is fine and not everything is great.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to reassess the situation.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. What's the next one?
The next
one
one.
in the acronym.
Okay, so we got resourcefulness and reliability. Again, I want to make a point here. In my opinion, resourcefulness and reliability are the two most difficult ones to teach.
Yeah, okay.
Because resourcefulness comes down to the level of desire that somebody actually has. But not just the desire, because a lot of people desire many things, but they don't want to back it up with the right actions. And that's what resourcefulness is. You got to think big, but you also got to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
Okay? And reliability, to a certain extent, what is it? It's trust, independence, and integrity.
Yeah, 100%.
Can you teach trust? I
Not
don't know,
really.
man. I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. Can you teach integrity? I don't know. To a certain extent, but not fully. Can you teach independence? Yes, but the other two are difficult to teach. So again, reliability and resourcefulness are the most difficult ones to teach. And these are two traits that I like to see in people regardless.
Yeah. Yeah, they're more like, I guess, internal traits. that
Internal
people
traits.
have. Exactly.
But the next one you can teach. The next one, what trait do I want to see? I want to see relevancy.
Okay.
So let me explain. When somebody is in charge of a group of people, I want them to be relevant. Okay? What does that mean? Educating people, okay? Educating your sales team, giving knowledge is very simple.
Yep.
And that's what beginners do. Beginners say something as follows. They say, man, this morning what I taught to my sales team was amazing. This morning I made a great impact. This morning I ran a great meeting. Here's the thing, man. I don't care about the greatness of your content. I care about how relevant your content was.
Yeah.
They are two very different things, okay? One person is focusing on entertaining. The other person is focusing on being specific and relevant. How do you become relevant? How do you teach relevant content? Well, the number one thing that you got to do, you got to fall in love with the numbers.
Yeah. Statistics, because in sales, beginners, leaders that are beginners in the sales field, what do they only look at? The amount of sales that were done. And based on the sales that people are doing, that's how they teach. Yeah.
But professionals understand the following, which is, sales is not the input. Sales is the output and happen as a consequence of the right behaviors being executed.
Yeah.
So you got to look at your sales funnel. You got to look at the stats. You got to look at the conversion, okay? Once you look at that, that's how you can create relevant content. Otherwise, you're just guessing.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people, what do? They guess. They ask their team, guys, what do you need? Well, but if the team is underperforming, they don't fucking know. So they're going to tell you what they think they need. But it's especially if they don't have enough experience, the answer that they're going to give you are all off. They're all wrong. Because they tell you what they feel. They're going to give you responses that are based on feelings.
Yeah, emotions, not logic.
Okay, sometimes they might be accurate. I'm not saying they're always wrong, but they're definitely not always accurate.
Yeah.
Whereas to be relevant, you look at everything. You look at the numbers first, and then second, you got to watch how your people sell.
Okay.
And I see a lot of sales leaders doing the following. Once they get to a leadership position, what do? They go to an office, they sit at the desk, they lock the door, and they never watch their salespeople selling ever again. That's the equivalent of, I don't know, my favorite football coach of all time is Sir Alex Ferguson. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Right? One thing that we know about Ferguson, whenever Manchester United was playing, he was definitely watching the game, was he not?
Yeah.
Imagine if Ferguson was sitting in a dark room without watching the game during the 90 minutes. He was just there alone in the dark. And then at the end of the 90 minutes, the players came in and he was like, so guys, tell me your opinion. What went wrong today? What do we feel? And everyone was like, I feel that this wasn't perfect. And it's like, perfect, that's what we're going to work on.
Yeah, it's stupid.
That's not how I used to run it.
Yeah.
You run it on two things, the stats at the end of the game, and you run everybody through the stats. Guys, these are the stats from this game. But second, you also observe the players playing the game. Because the stats are only going to tell you, the stats give you an indication. But if you want the exact answer, you also got to see it.
Yeah, seeing is believing, for sure.
Do you understand what I mean?
100%.
Right? So yeah, you gotta see that. You gotta see that because sometimes you might see from the stats, okay, this person is delivering a high number of sales presentations, but then, it's only closing this amount of people. The conversion from presentations to closes is very low. So an assumption could be, okay, I need to work on closing. Yeah. This guy or this girl is not closing correctly, but maybe that's wrong. Maybe there was a lack of engagement all the way through the presentation. All right?
Yeah, okay.
And because the engagement was missing, when the guy or the girl gets to the close, the prospect is just not interested because they were fully switched off in the first place. So here's what you know. Well, it could be that the close is wrong, or it could be that we are lacking engagement. Which one is it? Go and see it.
Yeah, go and see it for yourself.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the next trait. They got to be relevant.
One question I do have on that. So a lot of the time when obviously leaders are, and you're running a bigger team and you're teaching them in the office, a lot of the time you're teaching to, I guess, the whole team or larger groups of people. And the people that you're teaching to, they can be at very different levels and they can learn in different ways. How do you always make sure that what you're teaching is relevant and being taught in the right way to the majority of people that you are talking to?
Great question, right? So first of all, try your best to split groups more efficiently.
Yep.
So if I have a group of people where I have entry-level salespeople and experienced salespeople, try your best not to have that in the first place and maybe create smaller groups so you can be more relevant to that group. But if it happened that you are in a situation where you're like, man, I don't have a choice, like a conference, for instance, the conference that we have next week, everybody's going to be in a room. The question that I ask myself is this: which one is the group that I want to impact the most?
Okay.
Which one is the group that is going to make the biggest difference? Let me give you an example, Max. If I'm running a sales team that is stagnant, okay, where I have experienced people that have been around for an extended period of time, but they're being stagnant with their sales right now, what I'm going to focus on are the new people.
Okay.
Because I know that if I get the new people good, what's going to happen to the experienced people?
They're going to pick it up.
They're going to wake up. They're going to be like, man, what the fuck am I doing? This guy just started a couple of weeks ago and he's already beating me. So I'm going to focus on that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's an example, right? If I have a sales team of experienced people, nobody's new in the team, which you should never have. But in that case, I focus on the one or two people that I know that can make the biggest difference in the fastest possible time. Okay, so I'm trying to impact them because I know that if somebody starts rising, then they're going to impact everybody else, and then everybody else is going to follow. I ask myself, who's got the biggest influence on the team?
Okay.
And I might be, is that guy over there?
Yeah.
Well, if that guy's got the biggest influence, if I know for a fact that if I fix that guy or that girl, and as a consequence of doing that, more than likely other people are going to follow, then I don't really worry about other people. I worry about that specific person, which is why sometimes I might run a meeting and somebody comes up to me and they say, man, I felt like you were just speaking to me during that meeting. This is crazy, law of attraction. And I'm like, no, I was actually speaking to you.
Yeah, literally.
I thought about it.
I was like, experienced that so many times.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, you got to be a little bit strategic with that, right? So who are the most important people in the room that I need to impact right now based on the current situation? And that's your relevancy.
Okay, cool. I guess the obvious answer to this question is just an increase in the team's output and number of sales. But is there any other metrics or ways that you look at to see if what you're teaching is actually relevant and is working for the team?
Yes. The number of sales, yes, you're right. But the number of sales doesn't necessarily happen right away.
Yeah.
Okay, so even though, and that's a very good question actually, because sometimes people are teaching relevant content, but the relevant content doesn't translate immediately to more sales. And therefore, they assume that the content that they're teaching is wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's right. You just got to teach it more and stay more consistent. So how do you gauge whether what you're teaching is right or wrong? Two things. One, is the engagement of the overall team towards what we do changing? Because when a team is doing terribly or when a team is being stagnant, the engagement of the team is not the greatest either.
Yeah, okay.
Do you agree on that, right?
Yeah,
you can see that people are more tired because they're stressed, they're more switched off, they don't take as many notes, whatever it may be. Maybe they're late, whatever it may be. So as you start teaching the right things, you should see a change in the overall engagement. Not everybody, but at least there should be some people, especially the people that you're interested about, right? Because you're tailoring the content to them. You should start seeing a change.
Yeah, okay.
Second, you need to track their actions, okay? Because when you start teaching relevant content, sales may not come right away. Because again, in order for people to do a high volume of sales, they need to regain confidence. Confidence is a process, right? We know the 7 steps. Confidence is not something that just comes back because you want it. Yes, as you become more experienced, that may be the case. But when you're not that experienced, you got to rebuild it. And there are steps that you need to follow. So how do I gauge whether I'm teaching the relevant content? Is this: are the actions changing?
Okay.
If I see that people are starting to speak to more people, if I see that the conversion from volume of people, I'm just talking about cold callers right now, for instance. If I see that the conversion from people spoken to sales presentations, deliveries going up, I know that people are working harder. I know that people are taking it more seriously.
Okay.
And if they take it more seriously, it's only a matter of time before the sales are going to come back in.
Yeah.
Sales will fully come back in once people regain belief. How do they regain belief? It's simple. Well, first, they need to execute massive actions, which is what you should gauge.
Yeah.
And when you start, implementing massive actions, usually you start getting results.
Yeah, makes sense.
Then you get results again and again and again. People gain belief, and that's when the right sales volume comes back. So, great question. Like, to be honest, the increase in sales is not necessarily a good reflection of relevant content, because you're not going to see an increase in sales right away all the time.
Until they action what you're actually teaching, and that's what you measure.
Not always. It depends where the team is at. If
Yeah.
the team is really in a dark place, you're not going to see overnight. It's going to take some time.
Of course.
But you got to stay confident about what it is that you're teaching.
That's unreal. That is unreal.
Okay, does that answer to your question?
100%. Yeah, that's very insightful, which is good.
Do you agree, or you want to debate on it?
No, I agree. I agree 100%, because it just comes down to, I guess, what I said in the start as well, is what got me going very quickly is just work ethic and the work that I put in, and that's actually what gets you the desired outcome, which is the result.
Spot on, man.
And when you're teaching new stuff, seeing who has the best work ethic towards that's the results are going to speak for themselves.
Spot on, right? You need to see the actions first, because here's the reality. You can always teach skills, right? But if the right actions are not there, skills are not going to make any difference, are they?
No, not at all.
Again, what do we need to bring back? Resourcefulness. That's what I'm measuring. And if I see more resourcefulness from team members, I know that I'm teaching the right material.
Yeah, and it's keeping, obviously when you see that, you know that the team's excited as well, and they're eager to learn, which is
absolutely
one of the best feelings as a leader, is seeing your team in that state of mind.
Absolutely. You want to see the right habits being back. And hey, they bring back one good habit. Is that going to make a difference? Maybe not. But then they bring back a second. Is that going to make a difference? Maybe not. Then there is a third and a fourth and a fifth. And then all of those, they start compounding, and that makes a big difference before you know it.
Yeah.
Okay, moving into the next one, Max. So we got resourceful. Somebody needs to be resourceful. Damn it. Somebody needs to be resourceful. Somebody needs to be reliable. Somebody needs to be relevant. The next one, somebody needs to be proactive. Okay.
Yep.
You can teach this one. You actually can, but it takes some time. What is proactiveness? Proactiveness is the ability to fix problems before they even exist. I'm going to repeat one more time. Okay. Proactiveness is the ability to fix problems before they even exist.
Yeah.
A good leader is not reactive. A good leader is proactive. To be proactive, you need to be a certain level of positive strategical paranoia. You have to.
Yeah.
And you got to sit down and constantly analyze the current situation and ask yourself, even though things are good right now, is there anything that I'm missing here? Is there anything that could potentially go wrong right now based on what it is that we are doing? And always try to identify something. Don't ever get to the point where you're like, no, nothing. Everything is always going to be perfect. That's when you're dead.
So be very paranoid.
Not to the point where you cannot sleep at night.
Yeah,
Otherwise, that's
obviously,
negative paranoia. I call the positive paranoia.
Yeah.
Positive strategic paranoia, okay? Maybe that's the definition. So how do you do that? It's just like once a week even, you sit down and try to create predictions for the future.
Yeah.
And ask yourself, is there anything that can possibly go wrong right now? Okay? My team is doing great right now. Well, we are doing great because 3 months ago, we started doing A, B, and C. These are the rules that we have set in order to get where it is that we are today. Are we still respecting those rules? Or am I falling into the trap of allowing hype replacing the rules and my systems?
Yeah, okay.
Because that's the enemy, man, especially when your team is doing well. That's where people go wrong. They don't notice this, but it gets to the point where hype has replaced systems.
Yeah, 100%.
The problem with hype, what is hype? Is momentum, is it not?
Yeah.
Momentum is like glass. If you go on Google right now, do it, and look into the process, look into the steps, what you need to do in order to make glass. Do you know how to make glass?
I would not have a clue how to make glass.
I know it's something to do with sand, but that's about it. And then I don't know what the fuck you got to do with the sand, right? But I'm sure it's pretty complicated. I would assume that it's complicated to make glass, is it not?
Yeah.
Do you know how to break glass?
I do, yeah.
How do you do it? What do you do? If I give you a glass right now, how do you break it?
You smash it with something.
Do you have to smash it or just drop it?
Yeah, you could just drop it as well.
It's
That'll work.
effortless to smash it. The same is with momentum. Momentum is like glass. It takes a lot of effort to build it. A lot. But to break it, you just do this. You let go, it's broken. It's gone. Let me ask you this. If you drop a glass on the floor, okay, and now it's broken, pieces everywhere, is it easy to fix that glass right now?
Not at all.
What do you need to do? You got to build a new one.
Yeah.
And that's a process, man. The same is with momentum. So that's what positive paranoia is. When you're starting to do well, be a professional. Don't be a beginner. Do not get cocky.
Yeah. Okay.
Do not get arrogant. Do not assume that this is going to last forever. And question yourself. How much of this is hype versus systems? Are the rules being broken? Because here's the thing. Once you have momentum, even though the rules are being broken, momentum doesn't drop right away until it does. But then when it does, what happens? You lose it.
Literally.
And that's when people
Back
get
to
lost. So, how do you become proactive? You need to fall in love with what I just said. You need to train your mind to find problems and fix problems before they even exist.
Yeah. Do you think with obviously people being proactive, I would imagine early on, like some people are unconsciously, I guess, more proactive than others. Is there certain ways that or strategies that you use to, I guess, make people more proactive and like increase that skill in a fast period of time?
Absolutely. Okay, so do you want to become more proactive? 2 things. Number 1, fall in love with the numbers.
Yep.
Because when people do well, what do they do less? They look less at their sales stats.
Yeah.
Their conversion, the sales funnel. They don't look at that shit anymore. Because, we're doing well anyway. Right? Do not lose that. You want to always be proactive. Look at your numbers and get genuinely paranoid and be like, oh, wow. Okay, our pipeline has dropped by 40% compared to 2 months ago, but the sales haven't changed. That's a big red code alarm.
Yeah, of course.
Because they're like, wow, okay, we're not speaking to anywhere near the amount of people that we used to interact with, but sales are the same. Why? Because the hype is there. But the moment that we drop the hype, sales are going to go. So how can you be proactive in that situation? By fixing this.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, we got to bring the pipeline back to where it used to be. So to be more proactive, fall in love with the stats and the numbers. You need to become a fucking geek with the numbers. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
But then to be more proactive, it's about trait number 5. So remember I said 3 RPE.
Yep.
What does the E stand for? You need to be emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Sorry, you need to be emotional intelligent.
Yep.
Proactiveness is a byproduct of EQ and relevancy.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
You can only be proactive if you do fall in love with the numbers and therefore you teach more relevant content and you have a certain level of emotional intelligence. Because to be proactive, you need to be able to spot changes in behavioral patterns. What did I say before about Sir Alex Ferguson? He was a great coach not only because he was watching the game and he understood and he knew his players, but also because he was looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
You can't just do one or the other. So in sales, it's the same thing. If you want to be proactive, you got to look at the numbers, but then also you got to look at your people.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
But how do you spot changes in behavioral patterns? Well, you need to have at least a foundational understanding of disc profiling. Okay, and you need to be able to spot changes in behavioral patterns. If the behavioral pattern of a specific individual has always been A, okay, and all of a sudden the behavioral pattern is B, I assume that there is something wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas beginners, what do? No, it's all good. It's probably just this week. It's just today. No, that guy is good. I know the guy is good, until the guy quits. And you're like, fuck, I didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
So again, if I see that somebody is breaking the traditional behavioral patterns that they've always been showing me, I assume that there is something wrong. And therefore, I fix a problem before it even exists. What do? I sit down with the person and I dig deeper, I investigate, and I try to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And more often than not, there is something, and you fix it. Does that answer to your question?
It does.
So, in summary, what do you need to be a great leader in sales or whatever else? You need to be resourceful, you need to be reliable, you need to be relevant, you need to be proactive, and you need to be emotionally intelligent. These are the 5 traits.
The 3 RPE.
3 RPE, mate.
Unreal. That's so
Unreal.
It's good content. Really good content. That it's I'm
That's
gonna action quite a lot of that, which is awesome. Okay, cool. So one question I have for you, in the time that I've been here, so I've been here 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
The company has changed a lot in 2.5 years.
Thankfully.
Like obviously, yeah, very thankfully.
For the better, I hope.
Much for the better. We've had exponential growth, a lot of new people come through, and just the way things are done have changed quite a lot. And it's been awesome to be a part of and see. My question is, where do you see the company, I guess, going in the next 2.5 years? Like, are we looking to expand in certain places? How big do you think we'll be?
Well, look, I got to the stage right now where it's not just about me and where I see it. It's about where do we see the company going, right? Because right now we have promoted so many partners and so many senior people that for me, the direction of the company is just going to be a collective of what it is that everybody wants to do. So I'm going to answer to the question based on what I know.
Yep.
I know that the people here want to quadruple in size because they want to give back. So where do I see this building going? Quadruple in size. If you want to quadruple in size just in this building alone, what do we need to do? We're going to need to expand to new cities. So that's going to happen as a consequence, naturally. What do I know about the other buildings? I also know that they want to grow more, right? I know that. Why? Because they want to give back to their people. So naturally, we're going to get to a point where in the current cities where we are, we're going to be too many people, and therefore we're going to need to expand to new cities. Well, to do that, it's going to get to the point where even the new cities are not going to be enough, and therefore we're going to need to start expanding internationally, which we're already doing. Like, we're going to New Zealand right now as we speak. But then we got to be real, Max, right? I don't know the population of New Zealand. Do you?
I do not. I think it's like 5 or 6 million.
5 or 6. Yeah, hopefully he's right. Hopefully he's right. If he's not, just blame Max. Right? We have a value at this company of not pointing fingers, but in this case, we're just going to point out Max. Okay, no, I'm joking. Right? Let's assume 5 to 6. Well, Australia only has 26 million people, so I gotta be real with you. Based on everybody's goals in Melbourne, in Brisbane, in Gold Coast, community collective as a whole, I know that it's going to get to the point where Australia and New Zealand are not going to be enough. And more than likely, we're going to get to that point in the next 2 years. So whether we like it or not, we're going to need to expand overseas internationally. Like, it has to happen. So that's where I see the company going.
That's exciting. It's very, very exciting.
And I will, on a personal and selfish level, I would love that. Right, I would love to also expand overseas because, as you know, my whole family, except for my partner, who I'm with here in Australia, but the rest of my family, they're all overseas. So that would be good also on a selfish level to do that. But we have to do that out of necessity anyway. Yeah,
of course. On the topic of your family, and I know you spoke a lot about the relationship you have with your father, and that he is a very successful entrepreneur in his own right. I feel like for a lot of people with very successful parents, it's a natural thing for people to I guess follow in their footsteps and do the kind of same thing that they did. What inspired you to I guess move to the other side of the world where you didn't even speak the language and do something completely different and become very successful in your own right?
Great question. It's because I wanted to prove myself on my own. Like, that's my answer. I watched other siblings of mine doing exactly what it is that you said, which is going and work with my father in his business.
Yeah.
And my father, as much as I love him, we do not agree on everything. The problem is, I started working in his business back in the days, but it was his business, man. So it was his way.
Yeah.
Like, why would I come in and change his way, which has been proven right for the last 30 years? And here I am with no experience whatsoever and say to my dad, you know what? Now we're going to do it my way. He's going to tell me to get fucked. Rightfully.
Yeah, of course.
That's what I think, right? Rightfully. So I didn't want that first. And I also didn't want anybody and myself to ever look at me and say, well, you're only successful because of your father gave you a good start, right? I didn't like that idea. That was more something personally, to be honest. I just wanted to prove myself. And awesome. I have the ambition, and that's what I'm going to talk to my father this Christmas actually about. I have the ambition at some stage into the future to take over the family empire.
Okay.
Like, that's my ambition. But before lodging this request, I wanted to prove myself.
Yeah,
and I wanted to come to my father and say, listen, I proved myself. I've done it without you. I've done it without your resources. Yes, you gave me advice, which, by the way, the advice, that were the most valuable part. It didn't give me money. It didn't give me anything. But it gave me the advice, and that was the most precious and valuable part. So it did give, even though it didn't give me anything financial, it did give me a good start anyway because of the knowledge that it was giving me along the way. I have to say that. And many times I didn't follow his advice, by the way. More often than not, I didn't. I was like, I know better, to then find out that I didn't. Right? And because I fucked up, I then realized that his advice were so valuable.
Yeah.
Because after a certain period of time, I learned that they were right, but I didn't believe it right away. So I wanted to prove myself, man. And I wanted to come back one day and say, well, I did prove myself. And I think that I earned the privilege of looking after the family affairs and looking after everybody in the family, because I proved that even without your infrastructure, I can do it anyway.
That's awesome. That's so good. Yeah, I had obviously parents are very similar background to you, but one thing that's always been a very internal driver for me is making it my way and doing something my way, because I never wanted to, what I was influenced to do from a young age, I knew I never wanted to do any of those things. And yeah, it's been one of the biggest drivers of my life is making it in something that I actually want to do, but also doing it my way and not influenced by, I guess, the most important people around me. And
spot on.
Yeah, finding that, and obviously finding that here, it's been an awesome experience.
Spot on, right? And just with that point, it's not easy, because I'm not going to lie. Along the way, as I was trying to do something on my own over here, well, I fucked up many times.
Yeah.
And when I did fuck up, my dad was like, come back. Yeah. What are you doing? Again, you wanted to prove your point. I get it. Okay, you wanted to be stubborn, but come back. And I was like, no, not yet. Yeah. And now, when we sit down, it's like, yeah, you were right. Like, well done. You needed this. Well done. Right? So, again, I don't have the mentality. I think he's built something, and I will hate to see that die.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be stubborn and just be like, I want to do things my way, everything is separate. No, I want to get to the point where we can merge it together. And I can look after everybody in the family. That's my biggest ambition. Everybody to be sorted. And know that one day, even when my father won't be around, the next in line is me. And I have the ability to look after everybody and nobody has to worry. And they know that because I proved it already.
Yeah. So
that's what I want. I'm almost getting emotional here, but you know how important family is to me.
Of course.
And that's what I want to be. I want to be able to provide to all of them, but I want to know that they trust me to do so. Yeah. I don't want to impose it. I don't want to force it. I want them to be like, yeah, you're the right one.
That's awesome.
You're like Neo in the Matrix for the Cadei family.
You're the chosen one.
That's it, mate. But look, Max, I think that today was excellent, was terrific, to be honest. You asked some tremendous questions, and I think that we provided remarkable value to the audience here, especially with the 3RP concept and everything that we have gone through. We talked about leadership. We talked about family. I think that was generally excellent. Before we close this off, I'm going to ask you, as the podcast, as the conversation today made you a better person, and why, what are the main takeaways that you received from this conversation, and what are you going to do about it?
So one of the biggest takeaways for me, it all comes back to the acronym that you went through, which is the 3RPE. And I guess understanding that some of them you can teach and some of them you can't as well. Mm-hmm. The ones that you can teach, they take a bit of time, but you can improve on a lot of those things. And from a very early like stage in sales, that's kind of stuff that you don't think about and you don't look to develop in those kind of areas. But as you get to higher positions, those are the main things that you do need to develop. And yeah, the one I probably like the most is the relevance, like just being very, very focused on the numbers and statistics, and then being able to gauge it not only by the increase in sales, but, watching people's actions and are they excited about the content again, and being able to gauge it in that way as well, not just how many sales people are doing.
Absolutely. And like I said, the first two, I want to clarify, I still don't know whether you can teach the first two or not. Like, I'm going to admit it. All I know is that they're very, very, very complicated to teach. Yeah. And more often than not, what I've noticed and what I've experienced up until now over the last decade is that people usually had those two already. Yeah. And then I just solidified them and I taught them the remaining three.
Amazing.
Okay, so that's my experience. Is it right or wrong? Wait 10 more years and I'm going to be able to let you know more, okay? But that's what I've experienced up until now. Max, the last question for you, okay? What's next? What's your next target? What's your next goal? Okay, let's talk about 2025. What do you want to achieve? And I promise you this, Max, me and Emilia can promise this. If you do achieve whatever you're about to say right now in 2025, we're then going to have another one of those. But the next time I'm going to interview you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be the other way around. It's going to be the other way around. And I'm going to ask you a question. Max, you said this last year. Now you got it. What happened along the way? And we're going to educate everybody. So let's publicly commit. Look at the camera. Don't look at me. What's next, Max? That camera over there, sorry. What's next? What do you want to achieve next?
Perfect. So if all things go well, I'm going to be an executive manager very, very soon. My biggest goal for 2025, I always like to look at what I want my team to achieve and how I can help them, because I feel like focusing on that, as a consequence, I move forward and get what I do want for myself as well. So my biggest goal for 2025 is going to be promoting 2 executive managers under myself.
Which means teaching 2 people to do what it is that you've just done, right?
Exactly.
So that's excellent. That's excellent, Max. Max, thank you very much. That was unreal. That was unreal. Honestly, it was so much value. And thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And please leave some comments, okay? If you want us to talk about something specific for the next episodes, please let us know. Please let us know. Don't be afraid of following the page as well. Subscribe, because we're just going to continue to do more and more and more and more and provide us feedback. We are here to serve you. We are here to help you with whatever it is that we can do. So let us know. Otherwise, we're just going to go with what we think is right. But once again, thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a great time and see you in the next episode.
Beautiful. Thank you.